Hello.
Hello. Happy Sunday.
Yes, we both have tomorrow off too.
Yeah.
In the United States, it is known as President's Day tomorrow, Monday.
Well, I'm still working.
So am
I have
I,
to
yeah.
plan. I mean, I still teach on Tuesday. Still have to get that organized. So it was either work on Sunday or work on Monday for part of the day. I'm choosing Monday.
Yeah. It basically frees up your Sunday.
Yeah.
We did some fun stuff. We went out to lunch. We made a breakfast. We hung around, read, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
We played Wizards Unite a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You have a trip coming up. That'll be fun.
I do. I'm going to Texas. Woo.
Texas, who I learned from Ronnie Chang, his stand-up, that
The state motto.
the state motto is friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Excellent stand-up.
Yeah, I was a little sad we didn't have SNL to watch this morning, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I think they had
Is
the
it
week off.
over?
No, they had the
Okay.
week off.
Okay.
So
Oh, Winston, before we sat down to do this, is super mischievous, running back and forth, so he's probably going to be a handful.
yeah, he needs to run around.
But he was last week, too, and he didn't seem to show up on the sound, so.
Mm-hmm.
What else is going on? Anything?
If you're listening to this before February 17th, which I guess is tomorrow, you can get some WizardPhD merch. Teespring has their own sale, actually, 10% off.
Does it go through tomorrow?
Yeah, through tomorrow. Or midnight Pacific
UTC?
time
Oh, Pacific.
on
the 18th?
the 17th.
Oh, so
I think it's...
tonight.
If you're listening to it before the promo code ends,
Try the promo code, and it may
sick.
or may not work. Yeah. But
or you can just check it out.
Yeah, maybe there'll be other promotions sometime in the future.
Yeah.
Different merch rollouts or different ideas.
Yeah, we're looking into things.
Do you want to get into it, though?
I'm ready, yeah.
Okay. Juan's ready.
Juan's ready.
Let's turn to page 65, The Whomping Willow. Today's lesson is called Crash Decisions. I realized I hadn't really been funny with any of my titles.
Yeah.
I'd been pretty serious.
Be
and
funnier.
That's a disappointing thing for me because I like being funny with that stuff. So I was like, oh, I'm going for it.
Okay.
A synopsis. The chapter begins with Harry surprised that he wants summer break to go longer, due to his love for life at the Burrow. Summer does end eventually, and the group heads to platform 9 3/4 to take the Hogwarts Express. When Harry and Ron try to go through the barrier, however, they meet only solid concrete. In a panic, they decide to use the flying Ford Anglia to track down the Hogwarts Express. Surprisingly, they are successful, although the invisibility charm malfunctions, and they begin an extensive journey flying above the train. The car begins to give out just as they see the castle, finally stalling out and crashing into a tree, the Whomping Willow. They survive the tree's assaults, and the car ejects them and their stuff and drives off. Ron discovers his wand was nearly snapped in the chaos. In the castle, Professor Snape, then McGonagall and Dumbledore, punish Harry and Ron and try to communicate the gravity of their being seen by muggles in the flying car. They are given detention and forced to miss the feast and eat alone. Eventually, they make it to the Gryffindor common room, where Hermione and Percy are perturbed by their adventure, but the rest greet them like heroes.
Percy, Hermione. Those
Yeah.
ministers in training.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so crash decision.
Crash decisions. Like rash
Decisions?
decisions.
Yeah.
I figured you got it, yeah.
Okay, cool. So
Because it always stuck out to me, sorry.
No,
It always stuck out to me that it's the moment where I think McGonagall is the one who's like, well, I'm pretty sure you have an owl. Why didn't you just send an owl? Like, why did you make such a rash decision, basically? And crash rhymes with rash.
So in the title, am I going to put rash in parentheses?
Just crash.
Or the C
Crash
in parentheses?
decision. I don't know. You do you.
Yeah. So there's a couple things, couple details. So if you have watched Chamber of Secrets, the movie, the film,
Yes.
it is different than how it plays out in the book.
Ah.
So it is Snape in the book, not McGonagall, who finds Harry and Ron. If I'm remembering the movie
Yeah,
correctly.
I'm trying
because
to remember the movie.
all of this stuff doesn't really necessarily play out where it's like it's so dramatic and drawn out. So you have Snape and then you have all this stuff.
Is it
and then you have
McGonagall
McGonagall
waiting for them?
Mm-hmm. She just kind of, they're like at the stairs or they walk up and she's there. Or at least I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
It's not this whole thing and then where everyone's coming in and out and then Dumbledore comes in and whatever. It kind of moves like a little bit quicker.
Yeah, because I remember Professor McGonagall being like, not today. She says that to them about being expelled, right? Or we're going to be expelled. And she's like, not today.
Yeah, so
okay.
That's just a little
Yeah.
But also, let's see what else. Oh, we learned about something called the Evening Prophet.
Yeah, while I was laying next to you, I was like, what? The Evening Prophet? What?
Yeah, apparently there's also a Sunday Prophet, which is, I could find less information about. It was more of, so I swear, like, there's a lot of content that was added to Pottermore, the Wizarding World in 2014, 2015. So like a lot to do with Quidditch things. And so then you have like images and a lot of stuff as I don't know, I think I've mentioned maybe on a WizardPhD video. They transitioned from Pottermore to Wizarding World. So Pottermore doesn't exist anymore. And so the problem right now is that not all former Pottermore articles are transferred to Wizarding World for some reason, even though they've already been written. Yeah, because it's not like you keep the same URL, you just change it from Pottermore to Wizarding World. But I don't know, for some reason, they don't have that all ready just yet. So
interesting.
The Evening Prophet, though, is
some rewrites.
An evening edition of the Daily Prophet. The Daily Prophet is the largest Wizarding World news paper, and it's headquartered in Diagon Alley, delivered by Al on a daily basis. Everyone knows about the Daily Prophet. We'll see a lot more as the years progress. And it's also actually a big deal in Harry Potter Wizards Unite in the game. There's like a lot to do with the Daily Prophet, or clippings, articles, past ones. Even like a little trailer for the game has all the Daily Prophet stuff. But unlike the Daily Prophet, the Evening Prophet is only published when there's something very interesting or unusual that happens.
That reminds me of all the times I've said to you, like, I'll wait very long for the day when the news doesn't have a breaking story.
No, so this is like super rare, and it's just kind of like, well, I don't know if it's super rare, but like, it's not a regular publication. Yeah. So, for example, the headline, Flying Ford Anglia Mystifies Muggles, when Harry and Ron broke the statute of secrecy, because you have all these muggles who are like, what is this, a flying car?
Yeah.
And so I jokingly wrote in my notes, I wonder if there were tons of printings of the Evening Prophet when the calamity started unfolding.
I bet. Yeah, I bet there were.
But yeah, so I did find some Wizarding World excerpts. So in writing by J.K. Rowling about the Daily Prophet, she says something along the lines of, it seems likely that wizards will continue to favor old-fashioned newsprint even while the Muggle world resorts to increasingly to the internet. I mean, that's just part of the Wizarding world. It's just part of like the, this is who they are. This is how they communicate. I mean, it's kind of fun. And then let's see, what other facts can I tell you? Or do you want to say anything about that intro part?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay. Well, I'll keep going.
Yeah.
So, the Grounds of Hogwarts. So we're getting more of like the context again. So Hogwarts is more familiar because we've been there before as people following Harry's journey, and Harry himself, like, oh, this is familiar. There's like notes of that in there. But there's also things that we still need to learn about the school and the surroundings. And so the Grounds of Hogwarts function partly as a nature reserve. And this has magical creatures that supposedly have difficulty inhabiting Muggle areas. So this is kind of like a safe haven of like, okay, we'll put some magical creatures and take care of them here, or at least they'll be around here. So that we don't have to worry about the statute of secrecy, and we don't have to worry about them like being hunted or killed or whatever. So it's kind of like them to be free. So there's also writing on Wizarding World about the Great Lake. And so this also came up in my search. Okay, so she said that in the original draft of Chamber of Secrets, she had Harry and Ron crash into the lake in the Ford Anglia and meet the mer people there for the first time. And so she said, at that time, I had a vague notion that the lake might lead to other places and that the mer people might play a larger role in the later books than they did. So I thought that Harry ought to be introduced to both at this stage. And then she said that the Whomping Willow provided a more satisfying, less distracting crash and served a later purpose, as we'll see in the next book, Prisoner of Azkaban. But I thought that was kind of cool that she was like, oh, actually they crashed into the lake, and or like in her first writings of this story.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with her assessment. There is something satisfying about the Whomping Willow.
And terrifying.
It gives it gives the quote that I chose, which was, "Can you believe our luck? Of all the trees we could have hit, we had to get one that hits back."
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, yeah, the whole concept of the Whomping Willow and her callback in Prisoner of Azkaban is fantastic because I didn't get any sense. I wonder at what point she determined, like, oh, you know what? I should put this at the Whomping Willow. Like, that would be really interesting. And then, like, we even learned the backstory of the Whomping Willow and its role in that book. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, actually, so, I mean, we do get a tidbit. I was wondering if I should share this or if I should wait. But, like, in Wizards Unite, so the Whomping Willow entry in the registry, it calls it a particularly violent tree planted on the grounds. Its limbs attack anything that crosses its path. It was planted right over a secret passage to the Shrieking Shack in Hogsmeade. Yep. So that's like, we'll get more into that. But that was the entry for the registry page. And then also an entry in the registry page is Ron Weasley's wand. Like, that specific time period is the wand from the challenges because it's snapped. And it says it in the entry. It says Ron Weasley broke his ash with the unicorn hair core wand after he and Harry flew his father's flying car into the Whomping Willow during his second year at Hogwarts. And then the second half we'll see more as the story unfolds. But that is specific to that time period, which I find interesting for the game itself.
Yeah, no, I hadn't really... I mean, I had noticed that it was broken, and I figured, it breaks. But, yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Because the other wand isn't in there, right? He gets a replacement. But, yeah. Yeah. You know, something I loved as well, though this is a left-hand turn here, is J.K. Rowling's use of the... So she sets up Harry and Ron not getting through the barrier by having them be late, right? The Weasley family is running late because they've had to turn around 3 times. Fred forgot something, George forgot something, Ginny forgot something. And I love that, like, she used that plot device. She wants them to be delayed, and as an aspiring writer,
11:45, and then they're counting down, and they're like, "We have a minute left. Like, let's go."
But she uses that to toss in Ginny why Ginny goes back. Did you catch that?
For the diary.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. That's something the first time reading, there's no way I would have thought twice about that. It was on an equivalent level as the other two. Going back.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that the phrasing in there is that she screamed or screeched or something. She screeched because she left the diary, which we're just like, okay, whatever, Ginny. Like, I guess we'll get your diary because like the other stuff. Yeah. I mean, a broomstick. You need your broomstick.
Sure, come on. He's on the team. He needs the broom. Yeah.
So yeah, no, it is good.
But it's so realistic. It's kind of endearing. It sets up the countdown because then it gives them Ron and Harry the excuse to be like, oh, it just shut, right? Because we learn more about that as well, like why they couldn't get through.
Well, even so, like when they go back and then Arthur's kind of like, okay, he knows that they're going to be late or they're running late, and he's kind of like asking Molly, like, come on, can I use invisibility and go fast? Push like, it'll just make it invisible. It'll be fine. And then we see like what happens later.
I love that as well when... It's funny to think about the Weasleys, especially, like they are in the wizarding world. Everything around them is wizarding. So she like comments on the fact that like the Muggles must know what they're doing. It's so much roomier on the inside. She doesn't recognize that that it's magical, because everything she would experience is like that. Like we see in the fourth book and movie with the tent, and like it's just a tiny tent, but then it's like gigantic and different things like that. Yeah. And the bag in the seventh, right, with Hermione carrying around the bag and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. I love the way that she does that. J.K. Rowling, she so seamlessly like does these moves of telling you that like it's okay to view things magically because that's what our characters are doing, and you should be thinking about it this way. Yeah. And so it makes me think about like some people probably reading are actually suspicious about why Ron and Harry couldn't get through the thing. Like, why would it shut right at that time? Like,
Ron even asks that to Harry again. Like, they're eating, they finally like get their confrontation and they're eating, and he's like, yeah, why couldn't we get through?
Right. Yeah, no.
Because they knew, I mean, and even Harry knew, because he was counting down the seconds when he was like, okay, now it's like or like now the train's gone, you know?
It's funny because it's hard to reconstruct reading it the first time. It was such a long time ago. And I probably didn't set it down between chapters, but I wonder if I suspected what was happening in the moment. I mean, I think I had no idea about the diary, because we shouldn't really.
Yeah, wouldn't be anything.
It's just nice detail on a reread to be like, oh, she goes back for the diary.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. But like we just met a character like 3 chapters ago trying to prevent Harry from going back to Hogwarts.
Yeah, and it was a big deal.
But there's so much else going on in the chapter that I suspect that when I first read it, I was like, oh yeah, they missed it. Like they missed the train.
Well, there was also an explanation that was offered when Harry got to the Weasleys, when it was just like, oh, well, I mean, if it belonged to the Malfoy family, like,
sure,
it's just Draco or whoever
playing
just being
a prank
mean,
as opposed to some actually extended plot to stuff. Sure, but so it's absolutely justified in different ways, but I don't even think I considered it.
Yeah.
I don't even think I probably even recognized it, because I swear even rereading it now, I'm just kind of like, I know what is happening, but I don't really think about it in that way. I'm just like, oh yeah, they couldn't get through, like, you know, I'm not. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, another good chapter. I mean, she just gets us back into it so well. And I thought, given our last episode, like the beginning of Harry kind of pining to stay at the Burrow is really also such a great character development. In one paragraph, she just does such a great job of being like, this is a moment of growth for Harry. He is so at home now that like even Hogwarts isn't necessarily this like sacred place as much anymore to him. He's like, no, I'll stay at the Burrow. I would stay at the Burrow for a little longer. Like Hogwarts could wait, you know. Whereas like last Christmas, I feel like Harry would be like, no, I don't want to be anywhere but Hogwarts, that type of thing.
I see.
But now he has had another experience, and he's like, oh, other places to feel home. And
So the kids get caught.
Yes.
So they're like looking through, and they see like the sorting ceremony is happening. Like the feast is like going on. Everything is happening. Like I mean, they made it barely, because like, okay, backing up though, I don't know how they survived the Whomping Willow, because like the way I was reading it, the way it was described, if I'm imagining a giant tree that's just like blasting a regular car, like no, y'all are dead. Sorry.
Yeah, totally.
But
she even describes the branch. It's like, I don't even remember how she describes it, but it's quite a violent thing. It's like they turn to see like this gigantic branch like attacking, like impales them. And they're dead.
I mean, I love how the car also spits them out. I was like, bye, like I'm done with you people. Like I'm not taking this anymore. But yeah, they get caught, and there is a dialogue where, so like the series of dialogue and like what keeps happening. Well, okay, no, Snape is just being Snape, and he's just like rubbing in their faces, and he's like trying to be intimidating.
He even tries to get Dumbledore to expel him.
Like everything about Snape is just like whatever. And then McGonagall and Dumbledore are both like explain. Well, McGonagall literally, like, she just says one word thing. She's just like, explain, which I find very McGonagall. And so they're talking, and then she goes, why didn't you send us a letter by owl? And Harry in his head is thinking, now she's said it, it seemed the obvious thing to have done.
Yes.
And he's like, oh, I didn't think. And so, okay, this section, like, drove me up the wall because I'm just like, I'm angry at McGonagall and Dumbledore, and well, I'm always angry at Snape in the early chapters. But like, okay, these kids they had this massive problem, and then they were creative in figuring it out of like, how do we get to, like, that was the mission, is like, we need to get to Hogwarts. Like, they could have been like, whatever, like, I guess, but like, no, they're like, no, let's take charge of our own destiny and like figure this out because we can. We're capable of figuring it out. Sure, maybe they might have broken the statute of secrecy with a few muggles seeing them, but like, come on. Like, I was just so angry.
Why do you even have obliviators?
Like, you gotta do your job. This is bound to happen if you're making a statute of secrecy.
And there also
like
seems
this.
to be a lack of suspicion about their claims to not be able to get through the
that part is
boundary.
not, so that's why it was
Seems
bothering
like something
me.
that Dumbledore would check in on.
Well, we also know that the adults are kind of like, they wouldn't involve the kids in that sort of conversation. Like, they would discuss privately amongst themselves. But I was just so irritated that there was like all this scolding going on, and it's like about compliance. Like, it's about like, oh, you should have turned to the adults so we can help you because you can't help yourself, sort of like vibe that I was getting. And I'm like, yeah, sure, they're 12, I get it, but like, it's fine, they got there. I mean, I don't know.
What is the thing? What was the thing towards the end that McGonagall smirked at or whatever?
When Harry basically interrupted and he was like, you can't take points away from Gryffindor because the term hadn't started yet.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I won't be taking points away from Gryffindor, but you're getting detention.
Yes.
But yeah. But also in that exchange, like at a certain point, Dumbledore comes in and they're having this conversation because he's basically like, explain like why you did this.
Right.
And it made me really sad that Harry was so sad that Dumbledore was disappointed in him. That part made me sad.
Well, he's the father figure, you know? Yeah.
So like the whole reason that they couldn't, or that they used the car, was because they couldn't get through the platform, and they're like, we have to get to Hogwarts, and like they did it, and then it's just like, why did you do this? And then it's just like, okay, and then Ron just like kind of lowers his head and he's like, we'll get our stuff and you're gonna expel us, right? And like after all of this, like Harry, like, having the terrible summer at the Dursleys, having this Dobby dude come over, and then just weird stuff.
Steal all those letters.
Yeah. Being broken out of the Dursleys by the Weasleys, hanging up, being excited, like, finally, we're getting to Hogwarts. And then I could imagine Harry's thought, like, going through all this and, like, then being expelled. That would be quite terrible.
Yeah. Because he even thinks to himself, like, he's not looking forward to, because they send a letter, I think. He says, like, Dumbledore's like, I'm going to write a letter to both of your families or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
I think we experience, like, the Dursley response and the Weasley response in the next chapter, but,
yeah.
Or soon.
Yeah.
But, yeah. At some point, he thinks about, like, not wanting to go back to Privet Drive or make it that, like, it would seem even worse. I think it's at the beginning in the first paragraph. Where
it's the first paragraph.
He's like, it'll be even worse going back to Privet Drive now that he knows the Burrow exists, basically. Yeah. I feel like it's his...
Well, okay, going back to the last episode, it does say in there that Harry was trying not to be jealous of Ron.
Yeah.
It did say that, so just call back
at
to
least he's self-aware.
Your thoughts. Yeah, self-aware. But also a funny thing to think about is, like, can you imagine any other students in this situation, like Draco Malfoy?
Yeah.
He'd be like, my father will hear
No, something
about
tells
this.
me that Narcissa gets Draco there early.
Yeah, I could see that.
That's my feeling. Or
Private
by
jet.
a limo or something.
Yeah.
Wizarding limo. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You know, something that always sticks out to me about this, though, that I find interesting, this particular chapter, is like their ability to see the train.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably has like a muggle repelling properties, but they can see it and follow it. Because I was always thinking like that the 9 3/4 and the Hogwarts Express is probably like invisible or something. I always thought that in my mind until like I think about this chapter and like how they're able to trace it the whole way. But it's probably because they're wizards, you know.
Well, same thing with Hogwarts. The school itself like is not visible to muggles.
Yep.
Yeah, and then like the other things that I wrote down, like quotes from the rest of the chapter. Yeah, go ahead.
This is just a thought that I'm curious about. Does that mean like if Hermione tried to bring her parents there, they just like wouldn't be able to go?
I don't think they'd be able to see it.
I wonder if there's like a boundary or like a way in which to like push through that charm and be like, okay, now you're here. You know, if she like apparated them in there or something, you know, I don't know. But anyway, that's just something that sprang into my mind. Yeah. Because I was like, oh, I bet Hermione would want to take her parents there, you know. I
feel like, I don't know, the Wizarding World has this statute of secrecy. And like we already see in the Fantastic Beast timeline, at least the American Wizards' reaction to Muggles. I don't think that they would be open to that. They being like Hogwarts, like staff or whatever. Actually, we don't really. Well, I was gonna say we don't really see any parents coming to Hogwarts, but not till
it's
later.
Visible to squibs, or at least a squib can be inside of it. So maybe there's something there. But anyway,
yeah, something must happen. So just the other quotes that I wrote down were just reminding us that. For Harry, this is familiar. So, like, he's already been here for a year. So, they rose and left the office, treading the familiar path to Gryffindor Tower. So, just imagining portrait. That. Yeah. And then they're going into their old dormitory, which I picked up on this time because I was wondering, like, oh, they stay in the same one. So, because now it just says second years on it. But it's like the same 5 and it's the same. Well, unless they meant like in general dormitory or if like specific beds, you know?
I thought about that while we were reading as well. Because then I was thinking like, I wonder if it's just like a magical replication of the room, that there are just 7 rooms. Like, do they, because I think at some point we learned that there's basically 2 pathways. There's like the male dormitory and the female dormitory, but like, they all go up the same pathway. So like, does it branch? I actually, this time was the first time I was like, I wonder if there's like a magical, there are 7 and then like, if you are who you are, you like come up and you're the second year. So you go to the second year one. Right?
Yeah, there was, when I was browsing, there was an article that was about the boys and girls dormitories, but I didn't.
You know, the reason I thought about it actually was because we play, as we've said many times, Goblet of Fire over and over again. And Dumbledore says he accidentally set them on fire. And I was like, I wonder if that means he was in that dormitory or if he's just talking generally.
That is what my notes say. But I was like, I don't know if I should bring it up because now we're talking about the 4th movie.
We've seen that movie so many times that like it's our point of reference.
Well, because initially in my notes, I was like, wait, was this from the first book? And then I was like, and then I found that entry on like a wiki page and it said like Goblet of Fire movie and I was like, oh, that makes sense why I thought of that
because in the first book he comes to visit Harry but in the hospital wing, not in the dormitory.
The reason why I started to go down a rabbit hole and I was like, wait, it's from the movie, maybe it's like not the like maybe it's just a throwaway line or something like that, was like, oh well, if Dumbledore stayed in that exact room that Harry's in, like, is it possible that he was monitoring Harry? Like,
he also probably has hidden stuff. There's probably some Dumbledore secrets in there. Oh my gosh, the Chamber of Secrets.
All the secrets.
Until next time.
No. Oh my goodness.
Did you have other notes?
No, that was pretty much it. That was the summary.
Good chapter. Ready to start the year.
Yeah.
Ready to see Lockhart.
And we already have a mystery now.
Yeah, we do.
A mystery of why did the platform not, why couldn't they go through to platform 9 3/4?
Why did Ginny care about that diary so much? Why couldn't she just get a different sheet of paper to write on? Coincidence.
Yep, pretty much.
All right, cool.
All right.
Well, until next time. Wands ready.